Primarily people were talking about the off-road mode. And this is part two. We're gonna address those comments. From what we've seen, we know for sure that electronic stability control is attempting to work like traction control. Hey, John with Agile Off-Road. First and foremost, want to thank everybody that gave us some insight into our slip test that we did for the INEOS Grenadier. We really appreciate your feedback. Primarily people were talking about the off-road mode. You know, you can pick up the manual, you can read it, and you can talk about all this stuff, but really in real world, you want to test it. Again, we're in a sterile environment here in the shop. We've got our rollers. And we've also had people asking about the rollers, so we're going to talk to you a little bit about the rollers too, and we'll explain what's going on there because we've really spent a lot of time getting those rollers dialed in. Originally, we tried rollers that, I don't know, you might have seen people using them. They're kind of like the ones you'd see in a shipping compartment where they've got like two rails and they got all the rollers and you slide them down. Well, we tried those and they failed. The heavier vans definitely blew out the bearings in there fast, like they would catch on fire. And so this is what we made. So it's a heavy duty roller. This rolls through here. There's pillar blocks in here. The pillar blocks are rated 6,000 pounds per bearing. And what we've got is we've got the solid rod going through there. We've got this bigger diameter roller for the tire to sit in there. And then there's these two collars, and those two collars go in there and they thread together. We Loctite those in, and then we pin them into place. So they're kind of a serviceable part. And then we've got these huge pillar blocks. They're greasable, they work really well. We did put these guys on. These were blocks. They kind of keep the tires for when it wants to roll off, it kind of keeps it into position. Our vans that we test weigh 10, 12,000 pounds. The Grenadier factory weighs 6,000 pounds. So as you see us rolling that vehicle on there, there's a lot of force on those bearings. We want to eliminate any type of force that we're getting. We want to keep this spinning as free as possible, keep the environment kind of sterile, so to speak. At one point though, the tire can kind of like grab onto these bigger diameters and want to roll out, but we feel this is far better than what you'll see like using those shipping ramp rollers. And then we do bolt these down. I would guess this is solid aluminum. I mean, I bet you this thing weighs, I don't know, probably 60, 80 pounds. So it's up there. So legit rollers for our test. We've got the Grenadier, it's up on the rollers. We've got it in the cross-checked position. And basically what that means is I got one front tire slipping and one rear tire slipping. We found out some interesting things. The feedback from people has been great, and we're gonna put the vehicle into off-road mode and we're gonna see what's happening. And ideally we're gonna come to a conclusion of what we think's happening and what's really happening. And clearly INEOS has a lot of things going on. And when you put it in off-road mode, it delays electronic stability control. So basically what it allows you to do when you're in off-road mode, and again, your feedback will be welcome here, is that it delays the functionality of electronic stability control, meaning it's not going to intervene until it's needed and it's delayed. I honestly feel like it's needed for it to get out of its situation on the rollers. And what that means is when the ESC light comes on, when you put it in off-road mode, it puts it into this delayed ESC. But what we found out something interesting is that we're generating brake force by just simply using a heat gun when the ESC is being activated. You'll see on the rollers, and when you're stepping on the gas, we get the RPM up, the ESC starts getting activated. So it's trying to stabilize whatever's happening. And again, this is stability controlled. I wouldn't call this traction control, but it seems like it's working as a traction control helper in certain situations. Clearly when you're on fairly flat ground, even a slight incline, or you're going down a hill, you might notice that your brakes are gonna be being applied. That's what I feel is happening here. Let's take a look at it. We got a heat gun handy. Glenn's gonna handle that, and let's check it out. Okay, so we're in the Grenadier, and now I'm gonna turn on the off-road mode. So off-road mode for Grenadier, it's 2 pushes, so 1, and then again, and then I always hit the main screen. I don't know if it's important or not, but it's off. So we're in off-road mode. I'm in four-wheel drive, open center diff, okay? So as I look at my screen, I've got off-road mode on the dash, the off-road sign is up, and the ESC is off, okay? But it's modified in this setting. So it's saying it's off, but it will actually engage here. So I'm gonna accelerate. We're on the ramps and we're cross slipping. So I'm gonna start accelerating. And what I've got is I've got Glenn outside. He's gonna check the brake temperature. It's 61 degrees on the non-rolling side, 80. So it's still got a little bit of residual. It's been higher. So you'll see what's happening here. So non-rolling left rear is 60 degrees. The right rear rolling is 75 degrees. So right now we are doing about 1,000 RPM and the ESC is off, okay? So there's my 1,000 RPM. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring up the RPM, and you can see also the warning light ESC is off. So I'm gonna bring up RPM, and what you're gonna find is that as RPM increases, we're gonna start getting the ESC is gonna start becoming active. So there it's active, so ESC is being activated. So even though we're in off-road mode, ESC is still being activated, and I'm gonna go over to RPM, and we're slightly, like 1,200 RPM. I know for sure if I just throttle this thing, it'll roll out of the rollers because we'll get enough friction out of the rollers. But why don't you check the temps? Go ahead and check.
83 degrees right now.
Right now, 83? Okay.
86.
Go and check the other side. I mean, obviously the other side should say the same, but just for validation. I think the rear,
Non-rolling side 61.
non-rolling side 61. Go check the roll. No, check the rolling side rear. That one, because I think we were getting more heat out of the rears.
110 on the right rear.
So,
That's rolling.
110, and that one was 70. So we'll start generating heat. So non-rolling left rear is 60. So we haven't gotten any temp. Go ahead and check that front again. There we go. It finally. All right, what happened there is ESC, with it kicking on, actually generated enough. It was trying to control the situation. ESC is designed for like slipping on the freeway, things like that. I don't know if I'd call ESC traction control, but in this case, it pulled us off the rollers. Now, I would imagine if we were up in like a real incline and we had a heavy incline and 100% traction on one side, 0% traction on the other, I don't think it's going to overcome that. My thought here is that the traction control for the Grenadier is obviously the lockers, 100%. ESC is going to work for mild situations in the dirt, as well as, you know, freeway situations. So you have to remember too that ESC has two ways of doing it. It's going to apply braking, and it's also going to reduce throttle. So if you're going into a turn, you go into like a freeway off-ramp, you carry too much speed, you'll notice that that ESC will get, that squiggly lines will get activated, and it will bring it up. One thing I'd like to do though is see if we can put this back on the rollers. We'll put it into low range, get ESC. We'll see if we can activate low range with, say, like our locker on, like the rear locker on, and see if we can get it going in low range with the locker on and see what happens there. Test 2. Brakes are probably still warm, but we're probably going to try putting the thermometer back on the brakes. But both rear tires are up on the rollers and one front. So this is like worst case scenario, and we've got passenger front on the ground. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go and do the same test that we did earlier, which is off-road mode, open center diff. So we're going to be in off-road mode. So let me put that back on. Again, 2 presses. For those of you don't know, you don't own a Grenadier, you got to push it twice. But when you turn on the lockers, you only push it once. And okay on the dash. And I think now we will never be able to get out of this situation with the electronic stability control. So I'm going to start giving it fuel, gas. We're in off-road mode. And as soon as we start seeing, so stability control should start coming on. Okay, stability control is coming on now, trying to. I think the thing thinks it's driving down the freeway. So stability control is coming on. 102, okay. So you can see it trying to apply power. It is chattering, okay.
Yes,
all right.
The stationary wheel is chattering.
Okay, try the rear, see what they're doing. 130? Okay. Well, that was the one that was braking earlier.
A lot of braking.
So we're definitely getting more braking going on with this. But clearly what's happening is the stability control is trying to stabilize the ride, but it's not able to work as a traction control for off-road.
60 on the right rear.
160. It's actually stopped giving us traction control.
The left rear is not rotating any longer.
Left rear?
Yeah.
Okay. Wonder what happened.
I don't know, but it's not moving.
That's why it made that weird noise from the rollers. Because it would stop rolling the other one.
One side stopped rolling.
One side stopped rolling. So what happened is we got, even though both of the rear tires are on the rollers, one of them started resting on the roller assembly, and it had enough friction to where it stopped it from. So we got it back up on the roller. I don't know what happened there. It's kind of weird. It seemed like one tire stopped spinning, and it allowed the stability control to stop coming on. So we were only rotating 2 of the tires on the same side. Stability control stopped coming on. Again, we're in off-road mode, so let's try this again, see what happens. So now we should have 2 rear tires rolling, 1 front tire rolling. And once we get up to about 1200 RPM, we should start seeing the stability control kicking on. So we're gonna put the locker on. So I'm gonna go into 4-wheel drive. We are locked in low range. And then I'm gonna turn on the rear locker so we can get the 2 rollers going simultaneously. So remember, the locker's 1 button push. So now we should have both rear tires rolling and 1 front tire. We're gonna see what happens here. So now I'm not getting electronic stability control kicking on. We're in off-road mode, we're in low range, we're in locked. We haven't locked the front, but I don't think we're getting any stability control activation. Stability control is not being activated. So when we were open, we would get a stability control, even though it was delayed, we would still get intervention. It would still try and intervene. So intervening for, probably like driving straight down the road and you're spinning out or something, I guess. But it's not really something that you're going to help you out too much in off-road. It might help you out in some mild situations. Now we're going to get off these rollers and we're locked and we're going to drive off. Actually, it's probably going to spin on the concrete like it did in the first video. But we're clearly not getting ESC intervention at all when we're in low range, and it's completely turned off. So let's see if it comes out, and it'll probably make a mess, do a little burnout, and we'll get out pretty easily. Yep, there it goes. There we go, we're out. All right, so test number 2 is done. Hopefully that kind of concludes what we're gonna do with the Grenadier on the rollers, because I'm sure we can sit here all day and all night and do different situations. From what we've seen, the electronic stability control is attempting to correct and work like a traction control. However, I don't think it was ever intended to be traction control like a more modern vehicle with traction control, where it's actually aggressively applying the brake and allowing you to send torque from one side of the vehicle to the other, whether it's front to rear, side to side. If you have your lockers, use your lockers. That's your best traction control device. And I reached out, the guys at INEOS have been real helpful. I've gotten to know a couple of the people there, and they did tell me it's a spider gear type differential in the center, so it's not really a planetary gear. I haven't seen it firsthand. I'd love to see one taken apart. Again, electronic stability control, it's gonna be great for the street. When it's in off-road mode, it's actually delayed. However, I think that you want that stability control coming on and applying the brake. So when you see it, it's gonna say ESC off on your dash, And then when you get under acceleration or these conditions where it's trying to correct it, you're going to get that other set of squiggly lines coming up. And that's actually applying the brakes. And we were able to simulate that here with Glenn going in and just simply putting a heat gun on there. And so we know for sure that electronic stability control is attempting to work like traction control. It'll help you in some mild off-road conditions, probably work really, really good in the snow, things like that. So again, I hope that answers more questions and doesn't create too many more. Thanks again for everybody for participating and giving us some, great feedback. We've gotten feedback whether it's been from YouTube or from Facebook groups, also personal DMs to me. We're creating more and more parts for the INEOS Grenadier, so check out our website. We are launching a new website here real soon, and it's going to have a whole new look. However, we just keep on adding more and more very unique and specific parts for the Grenadier. So check out all those parts. Happy trails, everybody.